Well, sometimes it's not a matter of choosing. Sometimes it's really a matter of finding one. Because there are, even though, as I said earlier, there are a lot of sales agencies out there, there are still less slots in sales agencies than there are films looking for sales agents. So you do have to be careful how to approach a sales agent. What I thoroughly recommend against doing is sending indiscriminate letters out to everybody saying, I've got a fantastic project, are you interested? Because these letters usually end up in the bin, because the sales agents have a limited amount of time and they can't waste their time on these letters that come from people who obviously haven't done their homework. So you need to think carefully who you approach and why you approach them. And then you send a letter not to dear sir or madam, you send a letter to dear so-and-so. I know about your sales agency from here or there. I love your sales agency because it's a perfect fit for my film, and I'll explain to you why it is a perfect fit, and this is why my film will be good for you. And that way you get the sales agency interested, if your film is good, of course, or your script is good. You then have to decide very carefully what do you want out of the sales agency. Do you want to absolutely maximize your earnings on one specific film? And do you want to maximize the long-term potential of your film? Or do you want to have a relatively easy life, quick finance, and get on to the next project? And I'm not saying one or other strategy is better. Both actually make equal sense. It depends on your personality, on the projects you have, and so on. Because there is even though it sounds lazy, there is a real logic for saying, okay, I might be able to squeeze a bit more out of this one, but I want it done quickly, because if you manage to do 2 films in 1 year, your earnings are higher than if you do just 1 film in 1 year. Or maybe that's a little bit ambitious, but let's say 3 films in 2 years instead of 2 films in 2 years. So the way to get quick finance is if you go with a partner that offers you a minimum guarantee, or a partner that even has a number of distribution companies within their group. I mean, that applies to companies like E1, for example, or Studio Canal. They have distribution outlets in various countries. That has pros and cons. The pro, quite clearly, is that you have a few territories already taken care of. There will be a pre-sale to those territories on terms that are to be discussed with the sales agent. The disadvantage, of course, is that you can't pick and choose. You might prefer a different distributor for a certain territory. You can't choose anymore because you have to go with that sales agent. Also, there is the issue that if you have a number of, a bundle of territories within a sale, they are usually what is called cross-collateralized, which means that if one territory makes, because the film for some reason or other works well in there, is profitable, and would normally result in an overage, i.e. an extra payment to you over and above the minimum guarantee that was agreed, whereas in another territory that it might be a little bit loss-making. If those are 2 separate entities, then you make a gain in one, and the other one, you had the minimum guarantee, you don't have to repay any money. But if it's cross-collateralized, if it's all in one hand, then the company, the sales agent that owns the whole group of companies, the sales agency and the distributors, will put it all together and say, overall, it was not profitable, and you don't get any extra money over and above the originally agreed amount. So it does reduce your long-term potential. But you might say, come on, how often do overages happen? I want my film to be financed quickly. The same applies to the question of whether to go for minimum guarantees or not with a sales agent. I mean, sometimes, of course, you might not have a choice. You really do need a minimum guarantee to finance your film, and without that minimum guarantee, you're not going to get your film going. And in that case, obviously, that's a no-brainer. But if you have a choice, your immediate gut reaction might be, yes, of course I want the minimum guarantee, the more the better. But remember that everything comes at a price. If somebody gives you a minimum guarantee, they'll want something in return. And what they want in return is basically two things. It's extra commissions, and they will want more control over the project. I'll start with the latter point. Obviously, if someone puts money into your film and risks money in your film, they want controls. If they don't pay anything for your film, then it's pretty much your show. I mean, of course, the sales agent might still say to you, look, you can't do this and you're destroying our sales potential. But they have, of course, a lot less lever than if they have put money into it. So it reduces your, I mean, they will have certain creative controls over the casting and so on. They will certainly insist on that. The other thing, of course, is the commission. If somebody takes a bigger risk by putting up a minimum guarantee into your film, they'll insist on something like 25% commission. If you don't have a minimum guarantee, and it's a reasonably large film, I mean, this doesn't apply to very, very small films where a sales agent, even without a minimum guarantee, might insist on something like 25%. But on a larger film, 5 million euros or something like that, you'll probably find a sales agent that will sell your film for 15% or less. It's a matter of negotiation. On even bigger films, you might be going down to 10%, even 7.5%, depending on how strong your project is and how interested the sales agent is. And that, of course, does make a long-term difference. If you have no minimum guarantee, from the very first, I mean, the sales agent also has sales expenses and so on that they need to be recovered, which we'll talk about later. But apart from that, pretty much from first dollar, you will be getting money out of the international sales. Whereas if there's a minimum guarantee involved, it will take quite a while before that is earned out. And as I said, with a lower commission, you'll be earning more in the long term. But of course, going back to the original point, having a minimum guarantee will allow you to finance your film quicker.